So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to the Love of Paul McGrath podcast as we look forward to Aston Villa versus Newcastle and look forward to being back at Villa Park in the league again, Paddy. It's been almost a month, I think, since Villa have played at home in the league. So it's, bit of a homecoming, and hopefully they'll be able to do it under lights tomorrow against Newcastle. Because I think it's a huge game. I think it's a massive game.
Massive game, yeah. I did like to keep the daylight between the likes of ourselves and Manchester United and Newcastle is what ultimately will keep us up that part of the table. So, absolutely huge game. I'm going to say must win, but definitely do not lose. I think is the motto tomorrow, and will be against Manchester United next week. There's going to be a tough few weeks ahead where we're going to really need to grind out results, and hopefully tomorrow is the start of it. I'd really love to see them get 3 points and spur them into this run of fixtures.
Yeah, and look, I suppose, as you said, this run of fixtures will be dictation, I think, of where we go. It won't be the be-all and end-all with regards to where we'll finish, but it'll go a damn long way to dictating, I suppose, where we do finish or not. And we're coming up against the Newcastle team, Paddy, in a lot of ways that, they're hitting a bit of form. They've been playing well recently. They've been getting good starts. They've been having good purple patches in games recently, but they've not really put together 90 minutes as much as you would have thought that, as much as they did last year. And what I'm trying to get at here is, like, we're going to talk about our injuries in a moment, but they're missing a ton of players themselves as well. And the fact that when I think about the first game of the season where we're bullied in midfield by Tonali, by Joe Linton, they brought on Harvey Barnes towards the end of the game. Callum Winston came on as well. None of those are going to be available. None of them. And Nick Pope won't be in goals. None of those are going to be available. So it's a huge kind of turnaround from the start of the season because, yes, we're going to be without Pau Torres. He didn't play that game. And realistically, when we look at it, the only player that I suppose that we will be missing that has played lots of time, bar Pau Torres this season, is Luca Dean. So on the balance of and actually Newcastle might even be without Miguel Almiron tomorrow. Like he mightn't even be playing, depending on what happens transfer wise, I would imagine. So it's a really interesting game from a lineup point of view, and I'm looking forward to the team sheet tantrum tomorrow.
I didn't hear anything about Miguel Almiron. Is he supposed to be on his way out?
Saudis.
All right. Okay.
Big bag of money for him, apparently.
You sure they don't want to take Coutinho on a permanent transfer out there?
If Coutinho's hamstring wasn't made out of cheese strings, then he'd be, I'd say he'd probably be gone already. He'd probably be with Inter Miami at the moment. But it seems that, he's struggling. He has been struggling for game time in Qatar with injuries. But quelle surprise, I think the phrase is.
Yeah, look, it's a frustrating one and probably one that we may regret in the grand scheme of financial fair play is taking him in there. It was a risk. We knew from the start it was a risk, but sure, look. As you said, completely different look to this Newcastle side compared to the very well organised and very well drilled one that we played at the start of the season, without more or less a backbone there that could really give us, and I suppose the big two was the Joe Linton and Tonali in midfield. Although Tonali probably had his worst game in that game, of very little to do against Villa. He was largely ineffective, but they're a really good side. And look, that's not me being flippant. There's big players there that can still change the game. We know that Gordon can blow hot and cold. We know Isaac is lethal once he's given a chance. Trippier from set pieces. Bruno Guimaraes. But then, you got young Miley. You've got probably Longstaff as the other two midfield. The back four, strong enough, apart from maybe Dan Burn. still a bit of a question mark of whether he can play at left back. But Botman and Shearer
scored at the weekend.
Two really
Dan
good.
Burn scored.
Yeah, he did against Fulham. Yeah, really interesting game against Fulham. You know, the Fulham had most of the possession, albeit they were at home. They'd 14 shots to Newcastle's 8. Yes, still managed to end up on the losing side. Strange kind of game, I would imagine. I didn't see it. I just saw the goals. Like most people probably did. Well, I think it was only the only live match that was on at that time. I just didn't get to see it because I think I was watching something more interesting. Rugby, maybe.
I think, yeah, and look, I suppose when we look at the settled nature of our team, I don't expect a massive change to our setup tomorrow. Number one, because we probably don't, like, there's one person I didn't mention there. I think Jacob Ramsey will be out. He more or less said he's not going to make tomorrow. I think it would be a miracle if he does. They want to be cautious with him. We'll talk about him in a different light in a moment, I suppose. But I would imagine this game kind of smacks to me as well tomorrow, Paddy, where we go back to Konza right back and probably have Bailey and McGinn to the left hand side, Bailey to the right hand side, Diaby playing in behind Watkins, and a lot of people mightn't want that because I know that there's awful lot of rumblings at the minute around Diaby, his form, and so on. Not like I think a lot of it is with regards to look at the end of the day, players who are cost 50 million or 40 million or 30 million or whatever, and they're playing up top, you kind of expect them to score goals and get assists. And when they go prolonged periods of the year without that happening, like it's assumed that there's not much happening for them. Diaby is somebody I think that does need a kind of a standout game again, if for nothing else, just to remind himself he can do it, because he's an absolutely fantastic player. We know it, we've seen it, we raved about him already at the start of the season, and it's just he's been kind of on his heels since he got that back injury in and around the middle of November. He's been kind of on his heels since, and but I still think he's going to start this game. I definitely do, and I think that's probably how it's set up.
I do believe he'd start. We've had this discussion before. I probably would rather see him deployed a little bit differently in order to stretch the game and stay a bit wider away from Ollie Watkins. I think it's very congested in there against certain teams, although I believe it won't be as congested tomorrow because they're in dire need of the points. They need to stay within touching distance of us, so they're going to come and go at us from the start, I would imagine. So it's going to be a completely different game. With regards to Diaby, people are okay if they want to, you know, we paid 50 million, if we're not getting the return, people are well within the right to complain. We complained, me and you complained so long about Bailey and not getting the return from him, and it's coming, albeit I don't want to wait 2 years for Diaby to do the same thing. So whether it looked like he was going to hit the ground running when he came in, it hasn't exactly been that way since then. So I do get what you're saying. He does need something to kickstart this, and you know what? Maybe this run of games where he's going to play 2 games a week for the next few weeks, it could be exactly what he needs. But let's get off to a good start. And not even goals. He's been largely ineffective as well. So without the goals being even an issue, we know he can stick it away. He scored that great goal against Newcastle on the opening day as well. So we know he has it in his locker. I'm just not sure he's been deployed the right way, especially in games where we're having to go against a parked bus, and there's very little room for him to make any inroads within that area between the 2 edges of the box. So yeah, I would like to see him pull out of there and see what he's like with a bit of pace. See him switch up, maybe even between him and Bailey on the wing, and just to see if he can give us that something a little bit different, because we did see him a couple of times. Escapes me now. Was it the West Ham game where he dropped a bit deeper and ran at them? And Brighton as well, I think, if memory serves me correct. There was definitely 2 games there in between where he was exceptionally good, but wasn't playing as tight to Watkins as he has been recently. So, look, we'll see how it goes. But the most important thing is we get 3 points tomorrow, no matter how they come.
I would love at some stage, maybe not tomorrow, but I would love at some stage to see Diaby on the right, Bailey on the left. We've said it before. Bailey had a cameo on the left, and I can't even remember what game it was, but I remember the two of us came on here and absolutely raved about how much more he drove at the box from that position. He was wide, like he had chalk in his boots kind of situation with him on the left hand side, and it looked so alien from the point of view that he's always played on that right hand side since he's come into Villa. And then at one time he's moved out to the left. He looked way more electric, and this is just before he's kind of the form really started to come back for him at Aston Villa. It was early on in the season. I think it might have even been. Might have even been the game against Rinsky. I think that might have been where he was playing on the left hand side, or maybe it was one of the games against Hibs or something like that. Now, the opposition wasn't top notch, but still, he put in the performance that we've been screaming and looking for a while. I'd love to see him deployed out there with Diaby on the right hand side. Give us proper width tomorrow, and play McGinn through the centre. He has the engine to be able to get back into that kind of 3/4 level. Doesn't even need to be box to box. He gets back into that 3/4 level. He's the engine to get up and to get up beside Ollie Watkins. And McGinn can strike him in the back of the net. And McGinn can assist like the best of them. He's one of the best dribblers we have with the ball this season as well. Play him a bit more central. We see how he plays there against Scotland. I'd like to try it. I'm not holding out hope for it tomorrow, but I'd like to try it tomorrow. I'd like to try it at some stage this season, because it just seems like we could be made to stretch teams a small bit better if we were to do something along those lines. But far be it for me to question the mister and the professor and what he's going to do tomorrow. But it's just a funny one, I suppose. Let's talk about this for a moment, Paddy, if you don't mind. I'll just switch topics on the fly. There's a lot, like you're beginning to see messages or beginning to see tweets and stuff like that. Well, Villa have only scored one goal in their last 3 games, and you're kind of going, yeah, like what do you expect? We've had a brilliant start to the season. There's going to be a lull period, and
of course,
you might say we're on that, but we've only lost 2 games since September or since October or something like that. We're still on a ridiculous run. 14 points ahead of this team that we're playing tomorrow against Newcastle. 11 points ahead of Man United. 8 points ahead of West Ham in 6th place. So our trajectory is still high. That's why tomorrow is massive for us, Paddy. Win tomorrow, you're 17 points ahead of Newcastle at this time of the season, with Man United on the horizon. You win these next 2 games, it would be an absolute capitulation if we weren't finishing the top 5. I would say at that stage. But so that's how much these 2 games mean to us, I think.
Yeah, like they're pivotal to our season. I think they're the 2 games we look back on. If we win them and we're celebrating at the end of the season, we'll be celebrating because we won these 2 games. They'll be the ones that keep that distance between ourselves, West Ham, Newcastle, Manchester United, if you said, because it'll mean that they drop points. And not to forget, we're going to have a really tough trip to Bramall Lane. We know how difficult they made it for us at Villa Park as well. So that'll be another test of our ability to break down these teams. And look, they play a bit different at Bramall Lane, so we'll get to that later on in the week. But yeah, it's a huge game, absolutely huge game. As I said, I think it'll be open and wide. I'm expecting a good few goals tomorrow. I'm expecting both teams to score, but I'm expecting us to win the game. And I think this could be one of those games that we look back at the end of the season and say, just that game was a dinger, wasn't it? It was a really good, open, expansive game of football, similar to the one that we played at home last season.
Yeah, I was just about to say, the 3-0 last season was a real kickstart to the second half of the season. Well, it was towards the very end of the season, but it was a real kickstart and got people believing, Jesus, there could be European football here. Another one of those now, another signature performance tomorrow could be really, really big for this team. As I said, then we've got Sheffield United. Who could forget about that on Saturday? You can come and watch it with us and 230 odd Villa fans in Limerick, if there's if you so wish. We've got Sheffield United, and then it's every game then begins to become a cup final after that. With regards to the fact that you start beating the teams below you and creating distance. There comes a time
and let's not forget, when people are getting downhearted and worried, that we've come through January, we're still in the FA Cup, we're still in the top 4, and we still have so much to play for. Yet we haven't had a great run of results in January. So as you said, we obviously drew with Everton. We beat Middlesbrough 1-0. Then we drew with Chelsea in the FA Cup. We're still in the FA Cup. Potential of a very good draw in the next round, or a winnable game in the next round. There's still a lot to play for, a lot to be hopeful for. The whole transfer scenario is a strange merry-go-round at the moment because there's very little happening, and I think it's going to stay that way. I don't envisage we're going to see an absolute bombshell of transfers happening in the last few days of the window for us or anybody, judging by how this transfer window has gone. There's an awful lot of very, very shaky teams looking at their bank balances and worrying about financial fair play, and nobody is blinking. And because nobody is blinking, the merry-go-round hasn't really started. You've got one or two people moving side to side, but no big transfers, no huge money being spent, especially in the Premier League. So we could be, as you were, when we go to Manchester United or even Chelsea next week. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I still hold out that I would be very surprised if there isn't movement, if there isn't one person in. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, because it's balance sheet management. And look, I suppose let's talk about those couple of elephants in the room today as well. But even go back to the summer when we signed like Diaby and signed like Pau Torres. I remember watching the Villa. Well, sorry, it isn't the Villa View anymore. And Bardell's going to murder me for that, by the way. 1874 podcast, and I remember that Greg Evans brought up the spectre of FFP and of the profit and sustainability review piece as well, and was roundly panned for it. And at the time, I was on the cusp of a wave, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to hear it. I know it's coming. I don't want to hear it." I was like that as well. But the piper has to be paid at some stage with regards to that. It's not fun. It's been one of the reasons why I haven't done many podcasts this month. One of the many reasons why I haven't done a lot of podcasts this month is I think the whole Premier League and the whole transfer window itself, after the sanctions and the sanctions given to the initial sanctions given to Everton, I think they were fine. I don't think people took too much notice of them. But the second round of sanctions to Everton and Nottingham Forest, I think a lot of people took notice and went, hold on a minute here now, we don't know what's going to happen here. We need to wait and see what happens to these guys here, because we're all sailing close to that wind as well with regards to that. And I think every team, bar maybe 4 teams within the league, is in that situation. But it's like for Aston Villa, then you see pieces come out this morning with regards to Jacob Ramsey and then John Duran in a swap plus money deal for Armando Broja and stuff like that. But the Ramsey one, Paddy, I just think it's a thing of nothing. I don't think there's anything in it. I think it's late window reporting. I'm not saying that David Ornstein is making it up. Don't get me wrong. I think there could have been a situation where somebody said, in an ideal world, if Meggy Almiron went, I'd love somebody like Jacob Ramsey from Aston Villa. And I think maybe that's where things like that this one probably came from. I don't deny that he was told that was the case, but like at the end of the day, Aston Villa would love to have Kylian Mbappe, playing off that left-hand side as well. But, it ain't going to happen. And that's facetious of me, I know. But what do you make of the Jacob Ramsey thing, Paddy? Because there's been, I will say, the financial fair play conversation around the Ramsey stuff has been very uncontextual, very unfinished. And to be honest with you, some of it's been wild. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And before I get on to the Ramsey thing, I do believe a lot of the clubs don't truly understand where they're at with financial fair play.
Yep.
and that for me is one of those, it's an elephant in the room for everybody. Everybody has gone, oh my God, look what's happened to Everton. They could be heading for a second one. Nottingham Forest in the same situation, 115 charges hanging over Manchester City. Is it time just to sit tight and do nothing? And we had Eddie Howe come out and say there was nothing in the Ramsey link. That's fair enough. We've had managers come out before and say there was nothing in the link and the transfer goes ahead. I don't believe the transfer will go ahead for a number of reasons. First of all, he's injured. I don't think they'd sign an injured player, especially in the January transfer window. if he was carrying a knock going into the summer where he had a pre-season to get over it, I could see it happening, but not at this time of year. I do believe that Unai Emery is a big fan of his, so I think he'd be reluctant to let him go, especially without an able-bodied replacement coming in before the window closes. And finally, I don't think we need to sell just yet. Now, I know people have reported that we will probably sell one asset in the summer, and that's fine. We might need to do that before the 30th of June when the financial year ends. Who knows? That could be anybody. That could be Luka Dieng going to Saudi Arabia. That could be £100 million bid for Douglas Luiz. I don't know, Leon Bailey, whoever it chooses to be. That might have to happen. But there's a lot going on with financial fair play, and I'm reluctant to be anyway worried about what's happening with us. But I think everything is just a little bit cagey, and we probably need to get a few players off the books before we bring in anybody. And who knows, that could be a loan. Loans out. We know there's definitely one or two in there that could still go, if not three. Preferably on a permanent. And I don't mean it in any derogatory way when I say that those three players are Bertrand Traore, Callum Chambers, I don't know who else.
The Donker's gone already, but he was the one.
Gone on loan, yeah. Who knows? Even Robin Olsen could go. You don't know. What if the offer was there, would they take it? Yeah, they probably would. So there's a lot of play. I think there's a lot of moving pieces that need to happen before we would spend any money. There is probably money earmarked, probably to bring in Rodgers, but that looks like now that they could be looking for too much, and that could kibosh that deal.
Rodgers, I've been speaking to a couple of people. Hopefully, I'll have one, if not two of them, on a podcast tomorrow to release at some stage tomorrow. Hopefully, that'll be the case. It seems to be that the Rodgers thing, and it's coming from people in Middlesbrough, seems to be that it's the staging of payments and stuff like that. So Villa were doing 7.5 up front and 7.5 afterwards. It's all about the staging of payments so that Middlesbrough can get out from underneath the percentage sell-on clause that they have with Man City, number one, and then also get more money on their balance sheet as well, because Middlesbrough have been racking up debts as well, like every other team in the game in English football. So I expect it to be done. I just think Villa will probably need to stage the payments, probably 75%, 25% or something like that. But that's another thing with regards to Rodgers, as people who know that I've seen before. I think he's probably coming in to compete on that left-hand side, but I don't think he's a replacement for Jacob Ramsey, because a lot of people's minds went there as well today. I just don't see it. They're not similar players. They're not similar players at all. In my view. And I think that he more than likely be coming in to compete with that as a number 10. For me, would be Rodgers, with the ability to float out onto the left-hand side, probably even competing with the likes of Diaby, for not for game time and not to force Diaby out of the team, but initially I think that's where he would be. But that's neither here nor there. What you make of the John Duran stuff, Paddy? It feels like we're just doing nothing but talking about John Duran. I still think there's nothing in it.
I just think it will be an absolute bonkers transfer. Not that Chelsea aren't well known for bonkers transfers, but I just think it would be a bonkers transfer for an unproven player to come in for what they're going to end up spending, considering what they already have there. So it just doesn't make any sense to me that Chelsea would be doing that. If it was somebody else further afield or overseas, then I would think there might be something in it. I just can't see him going to Chelsea at all.
Yeah. A couple of comments there as well, guys. We're not neglecting those comments there as well. A couple of things there about with regards to potentially being forced to sell youth players and stuff like this. I wasn't going to get up on this high horse with regards to it, but I think a lot of teams in the Premier League have been arrogant, and I don't think it's the top teams that have been arrogant with regards to this. I think the top teams have set themselves up better with regards to this. I think the likes of Spurs have done an outstanding job on their balance sheet, while still being able to stay competing at the top level. I have been ripping the doors down, wondering why the likes of Southampton and those guys are spending 20 and 30 million, 20 million. And even I said about James Trafford this season, buying Manchester City youth players that have never played in the Premier League for £20 million. Like, the reason Man City can spend money is they got Erling Haaland for 60 million. They've basically won everything in front of them, and they get to sell people like Shea Charles and Gavin Bazzuno, who are good players in their right, but are nowhere near £20 million players when they were sold. They may turn out to be £20 million players, but they weren't £20 million players when they were sold. So Man City have recouped the bones of 100 million from players that never played for them in the Premier League. Like Aston Villa recouped 100 million from a player that when he left, Purslow was too upset to tell us that he left, so he went away and signed 3 players in his stead, and it took a year for any of those 3 players to show any promise, and one of them was sold shortly afterwards, and Danny Ings, so I genuinely believe that there's 15 clubs at least in this league, 15 clubs I think in this league, that thought that they could band together, and that the FFP rules may not ever come back to bite them, and now that they've seen the sanctions, that they are coming back to bite. And I'm not saying the Villa are in trouble or been mismanaged or anything like that. I think it was always a case of, right, we'll see how hard the teacher hits first, that kind of a thing. And now that they've seen what the strike is like, they're kind of going, we can get back within our means and things will be okay. But I think there's a lot being made out of it because of the suddenness of it. Like, we've seen January transfer windows before where 500 million, $1 billion has been spent in a January transfer window because everyone's spending like drunken sailors. And it's not to say that those days are absolutely gone, but it's to say that they're not happening in this one because teams are kind of going, look, someone's been given out to us, someone's been given detention. We're all going to stay quiet in class for the rest of this class, and then when we go out, and then when summer happens, we'll be bucket mad again, hopefully. And I think there is an element to that. I definitely do. But look, the Man Cities of this world, like Man United, don't need to worry about it because their revenue is so high because of all the shirts they sell. That's the tangent I went off on about a week and a half ago about the stadium. I'm indifferent about the stadium. We need to start just selling bloody more shirts. That's number one, and then the stadium then would be number 2 for me. Man City sell shirts, and it basically covers everything that they need within their club. Man City are selling young players, and Spurs have really got that experience in the stadium down in the NFL deal. What a Villa have, what do we have other than the colloquial fan base and chumps like myself and Paddy who come over from Ireland every so often, so we've a lot of catching up to do from that point of view. And yeah, it's happened. People have started to take notice of it and started to say, this is a real thing now. We've seen a sanction. And the Man City 115 things, that's completely different. That's actually fraud more so than it is sustainability from a financial fair play point of view. It's actual fraud. So let's park that, I suppose, for another conversation, especially the 115 Man City ones. But I still think that we'll have people in. But yeah, exactly. I still think we'll get players in. I think we will stay. We will get a player through the door, I think, before the end of the transfer window.
You'd like to think so, but with only a couple of days left and a game tomorrow, it's going to be difficult. But we don't know what's going on. As I said, those moving parts are the big deal. If we can move on 1 or 2, then 1 or 2 will probably come in. A couple of people mentioned in the comments about the big wages that the likes of Traore and Dean are on. Then Donker was on huge wages. So all of these things are a plus to get Dundonker out there to move on. Bertrand Traore would be great. It would have been great for him to light up the African Cup of Nations and get a move somewhere before it all finished. But that looked like it's unlikely to happen at this stage.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I think, what do we say? We went through the closing dates for some of the transfer windows there. You never know. We might get people out after we're able to bring people in. But AFCON being on in the middle of the transfer window has, I think, been poor for a lot of those players from the point of view that a lot of them probably were hoping that they might be able to get moves during the AFCON. But it's just a weirdly placed competition every single. It's never on at the time that anybody wants it.
I can never understand why they play it in the middle of the European season when most of the top players are playing in Europe And there's a 2-year window there where they could play it in the summer. Now, I know it's warm there in the summer and it's difficult, but they're used to playing in that type of temperature. So I don't understand why it's not played on the year that the European Championships and the World Cup is not played. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm sure there's some logical reason for it, but it surely doesn't help some of them players get a move to the bigger leagues because
it's to do with
heat.
Years. It's to do with heat. It's to do with climate. Yeah. Well, here's my solution for it, Paddy. Play the AFCON, play the European Championships, play the Copa America, play them all in the same year. You have the Copa America in the middle of the night. You have the European all European games starting from 4:00 onwards. Start the African games in a couple of hours earlier before the sun hits the. You could be sitting down on a Tuesday from 10 a.m. in the morning till 2 a.m. at night, and you could be watching soccer or football or whatever you want to call it, wherever you are in the world, and it would be absolutely glorious. You could have 24 hours of football because you could run the Asian Cup as well at the same time. Just do it. It makes so much sense, and then we don't have. Then players get a proper break for 3 out of every 4 years. Well, 2 out of every 4 years, should I say? Just do it. Hire me. Get rid of.
And while you say it is the heat, it like the southern part of Africa is at its hottest at the moment, whereas North Africa is at the coolest. So that's why I'm saying it doesn't make a whole pile of sense. You could play this in the southern part of Africa every 2 years, and put up with the mediocre temperature somewhere else. But look, it's just one of those strange ones. That
do you know what you do, Paddy? Do you know what you actually do? Bring it to a random place in the world. So, like, let's play all those games in France, Germany, or somewhere like that, instead of centralize it. Now, I've gone too far with that one. I think I might have lost the audience on that one. I don't think I get too many votes for that one. But I definitely think that if there was a streamlining of all those tournaments when they were on, it gives players an awful lot more. It gives players time to actually breathe and break, because at the moment,
while you brought up that, I would like to give the Premier League a little bit of a pat on the back. I usually give them a kick on the arse, but I'd like to give them a bit of a pat on the back that they've never brought any of their games abroad, like we saw the Italian Super Cup and we saw the Spanish Super Cup over the last few weeks. That's very hard to watch. Very, very hard to watch. It's actually really, really annoying that they're bringing it out there. So fair play to the Premier League. I hope they never do that. I hope they never do the threatened one in America. They play a lot of friendlies there in the summer. It's the Premier League. They get some of them even come to Ireland and play friendlies if people can't get there. But all the games should stay within the country, as far as I'm concerned. And I just think it's wrong to be playing your games. Your games abroad, and I couldn't even watch the Barcelona Real Madrid game for that reason. It's very, very hard to even fathom what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think we would have had it only for the reaction of some of the fans of the Super League. I think
possibly.
Only for the reaction of the fans of the Super League, I'd imagine we'd have some sort of Royal Rumble football match at the moment, whereby 2 players start out in the field trying to tackle each other and score, and then every 30 seconds there'll be players brought in. I think the Premier League would have tried some wild things, but I think the Super League is the dissolution, or the perceived dissolution of the Super League, has made the Premier League go, right, let's stay within our lane here, because they were definitely going abroad with one. They were definitely going abroad with a game. Without a shadow of a doubt. I would imagine the first game of the season or the last game of the season would have been abroad. Or maybe they would have introduced another game, or not had the game after the bye week, or the game before the bye week that they have in and around this Christmas time, should I say. That would have been the game that they would have had. But that was nixed, I suppose, really, when the Super League got such a poor reaction, and thankfully it did, because I don't think the clubs don't need it. Everybody's a dodgy box, it seems, in the world, so everyone's able to watch the games, and they get their fill, I think. Right, we're going to leave it at that. In case anybody hasn't noticed, I'm low energy today because I don't know if anybody else has this. It's just an annoying cold. I've had it for about 3 or 4 weeks now. I need to shake it before this weekend. So I think we're going to end it on that note, Paddy. We've been on for over half an hour anyway. We're going to be back again tomorrow with Team Sheet Tantrums, post-match podcasts and stuff like that. As I say, I'm trying my best to sit down with two separate people, from one a Middlesbrough fan, another one a Middlesbrough reporter, to talk a bit about the potential Rodgers deal tomorrow. And I've got one or two other little things up my sleeve to see if we can get out before now and or between now and the end of the week. So stay tuned, and obviously any transfer stuff as well, we'll try and get to you with that too. But I hope everybody stays safe and stays healthy. I hope you all join us tomorrow for the Team Sheet Tantrum. And in the meantime, all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.